Hi, my name is Janet Raftis, and I am a master energy healer and intuitive development teacher. So I teach people how to tune into and access their own superpowers because we all have them. So what I'm going to be talking about today is just a little introduction to the psychic senses, because one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people don't recognize what their psychic senses might be. So most of us have at least one operating. Some of us have more. But whether we have one or more, learning what they are and then being aware of that can really help us to, take the leap to the next level, so to speak. So when we think of psychic senses, we tend to think of just clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is kind of like the most famous psychic sense. In fact, it's so much so that I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding around what being psychic actually might be. So for example, when my gifts were all opening back up again, I was like, I'm not psychic, I don't see anything. And that was this preconceived notion that I had. But really what was happening was I was getting tons of psychic information from other avenues. I was hearing things, I was feeling things, I had a knowingness about things. So my psychic senses were actually really strong, and they were working really well for me, giving me lots of information, but I had this preconceived notion that I wasn't doing it right, or I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't psychic enough, or all kinds of different things. And so it was when I really came to this understanding that, wait a minute, oh my God, I'm getting information from in all different types of ways, that I was really able to kind of transcend that. And once I finally stopped worrying about it or thinking about it or having that limitation around it, what happened was that eventually I became clairvoyant. As soon as I kind of relaxed the need for that to happen, it started to happen. And what I did was I used my other psychic senses to help fill in the blanks. So basically I would use those as my strengths, and then allow the others that were maybe not so strong would come in and start filling in the blanks. And then eventually it got to where they were all strong, and I received plenty of clairvoyant information now. So there are several psychic senses. So clairvoyance, let me just let y'all know too that clair actually means clear. So when we say something like clairvoyance, we're saying clear seeing or clear sight. When we say clairaudience, we're saying clear hearing. So anytime there's a clair in front of whatever the whatever the sensation is, or the sense of it is, we just mean clear and then whatever that is. So clairvoyance is clear sight, and basically this is all perception, right? It's all being able to tune into the subtle energies through whatever psychic senses we're using. And it happens as an interpretation of energy. So basically, anytime we do anything with our psychic senses, we are just translating energy that's in the field. And it's just practice and utilizing your strengths that helps you to get there more fully. With that in mind, clairvoyance is clear sight, and that means that you psychically see things. So this happens a lot. Some people have visions, and they get very full visions, and this can happen externally, or it can happen also in the mind's eye. So this is another thing. It's not always outside of you. Sometimes it happens within your mind's eye. So anytime you're using even your imagination, or when you're dreaming, you're actually using your third eye. You're using your psychic vision. So all of us are using our psychic vision in at least some capacity. So with that, you might see something external. This happens a lot with earthbound spirits, or sometimes even angelic presences. People who are highly clairvoyant will see them. Other people may have a different experience of them. So with that in mind, we can move into claircognizance. And claircognizance is clear knowing. And this is connected with your crown chakra. And a lot of people who are considered wise, right? Wise people are very claircognizant. What happens is you just have a knowingness of things. You don't know how you know the information. You don't really know where it came from, but you know it, and you know it to be true. So I'm highly claircognizant. And this was one of the first things that was really operating in me. And what's really interesting is that it is, in fact, I use it so much that sometimes I don't know if I'm using that or other psychic senses. So an example of this would be that my partner Scott is very, very clairvoyant. He's also a visual artist. And so he, of course, has an affinity towards seeing things, right? I'm a very feeling person, so Clairsentience is very high in me. And then also I have Claircognizance. So sometimes we'll go and we'll do like house clearings together, something like that, and he'll actually physically see an entity or a spirit that's there. He'll like actually see it, and he'll know exactly what it looks like because he sees it hanging out in the corner. Whereas I won't see it there, but I'll have a very strong sense of what it looks like. And we can compare notes, and it turns out like that we are seeing pretty much exactly the same thing. We might see some different aspects of it, but we're describing the same thing using different psychic senses. So there's no one that is better than the other. What this is learning to use the gifts that are your best gifts to get the information. So claircognizance, I'll just have a knowingness of what it looks like. I'll know exactly what it looks like without ever seeing it. And I think that that is actually probably what started giving me the visual images, was that I would have a knowingness of it, and then at some point in time I would start seeing it. And usually I see things in my mind eye, unless it's energy, like I can see auras and I can see energetic stuff in the environment. But typically I don't see spirits unless I'm seeing them in my mind's eye. Let's see, we also have clairaudience, and clairaudience is psychic hearing. So this is being able to hear angels, guides, earthbound spirits, anything in the subtle realms, and you're hearing it on a different level. Sometimes this can, so claircognizance and clairaudience can be a little tricky sometimes, because with claircognizance we might not realize that we're getting the information from spirit. We might just think like, damn, how did I know that? That was really good. With clairaudience, sometimes it can sound like our voice. Sometimes it'll sound different, and sometimes it'll sound like our voice. A lot of times with clairaudience, I will hear something, I'll get a message, and it'll be in my voice, but the intonation of it will be different, or the words that I use will be different. So the message will come through in a way that I wouldn't say it, but because I'm hearing it in my mind, it'll be carrying my voice. It'll just feel different to me. And then also, just like clairaudience, you can have that inner, or with clairvoyance, so you can see something internally, you can hear it internally, and then you can also have an external experience with it. So with clairaudience, you can also have an external experience, and this would be hearing something outside of your body, like a clap in the room, or steps across the floor, or somebody speaking that is definitely somebody else's voice coming from outside of you. Clairaudience can be a little discombobulating sometimes. It can be a little intense. My experiences when I hear it externally typically startles me. Let's see, we also have clairgustance, and clairgustance is psychic tasting, so it's clear tasting. So this happens a lot alongside clairaudience a lot. So clairaudience is psychic smelling, and just like in our physical senses, right? Smelling and tasting go together a lot, and that happens in the psychic realm as well. So people who are very scent oriented most likely will experience clairaudience. People who are chefs or love to cook or bake often experience clairaudience and clairgustance. So again, you can kind of start to tune into like, what would my senses be based on the things that you really love, right? And it will lead you down a trail, and then you can start to kind of tune into like, wait a minute, I have experienced that before. I think that a lot of people have experienced clairaudience, but we don't realize it, or we brush it off, right? So we might have that experience of like, oh, something, I smell something, but there's nothing there, right? I smell cigarette smoke, or a pipe, or my grandmother's perfume, or the apple pie that my aunt Matilda used to make. A lot of times, spirits send us things through smell, and I've noticed this a lot with relatives who have crossed over, because scents are so distinguishing, and because they activate our memory so strongly. A lot of times when a spirit is coming from the other side, they'll identify themselves by how they smelled. So for instance, one of my grandfathers smoked a lot of cigarettes and drank a lot of coffee, and he was coming through to me with cigarettes. He was smoking in my car, and I needed to, after I figured out what was going on, Jake and I both smelled it. There was nobody anywhere near us. We were on school property. There was nobody anywhere near us smoking a cigarette, and it happened then several times. And I was like, oh my God, this is my grandfather. So we figured that out, and then it happened a couple more times, and I was like, Grandpa, I don't let anybody smoke in my car. I don't smoke. Like, you're gonna have to come to me with like a different smell. And he started coming through with coffee, which was a lot more pleasant for me. But you'll notice that happens a lot, and a lot of times that does mean if you smell something that doesn't seem to make any sense in your physical surroundings, it very well could be that one of your relatives is reaching out to you, or one of your friends who has crossed over. I also notice it a lot in spaces. So sometimes going into a space, and I might notice a smell of something that has happened there before, like maybe there was a fire. I might smell smoke. So the next time you have this experience, because in what I have seen through working with a lot of people, is that most people have had an experience with clairaudience but not known they were having a psychic experience. They were like, oh, I just thought that was like something weird, you know? Same with clairgustance. So that might come through if, you know, your Aunt Matilda was known for her apple pies and it was one of your favorite things in the whole world. You might actually not just smell it, but you might actually taste it. And another thing that is worth bringing up with clairgustance is that a lot of people who are intuitive can sense illness in people through taste in their mouth. So if you happen to notice that, you know, every time you see a certain person, you get a certain taste in your mouth, there might be something there for you to explore. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about today is clairsentience. A lot of empaths have strong clairsentience. This is something that I have very strongly as well. So this is not just really like with an empath, you're really feeling and taking on the emotions of another person. With clairsentience, you may feel the emotions, but you also might have experiences of feeling things physically. So if you, for example, I'm a healer, and if somebody has a hurt knee, my knee will actually start hurting. Or if they have something going on in their stomach, my stomach will actually start hurting. So I'll have some sort of physical sensation that will lead me to what is happening with them. And it can also be emotional, and it can also be something that happens in different ways. I'm trying to, you know, as my senses get stronger and stronger and stronger, and the more you work with them, the more you practice and play with them, the stronger they will get. As my senses get stronger, I notice that I'm starting to experience psychic senses that I don't, I'm sure other people are experiencing them, but I don't know that there are any names for them. They're not common. One is like I'm experiencing texture psychically. Like I just have a sensation of what what something texturally feels like like what type of fabric it is, or something like that. Or even, it's not even like the fabric, because that could be clairsentience, but it's like a sensation of what a spirit might have, what texture a spirit might be. It's hard for me to even explain, but it's been a completely new experience for me. And so, you know, as we get into more of a multi-dimensional way of thinking and living and experiencing life, what you will notice, and as you activate these gifts more and more and more, hi Gabriela, as you activate these gifts more and more, is that you will experience more and more. And my advice, I mean, this is just an intro. We could probably talk about these. I mean, I spend hours talking about them in workshops and retreats, and practicing with them. But as an intro, I think the most important thing that I want to impart to you is that everyone has these gifts. Everyone has these gifts. Some of us have them more strongly than others. Some of us were born with them stronger than others, but we all have them. And if you start to pay attention to what's going on, if you bring a lot of awareness into your present, and you take the time to really notice the sensations that are happening for you, you will start to be able to tune into them more and more and more. So I think that's all I got on that topic. I would love to take a couple questions if you guys have any. So if you do, just go ahead and type it in the comment bar there. And if somebody asked a question before, I can't see it because I can't scroll on the phone. So just ask it again. And I will just share with you that it is super, super fun to use psychic senses. It gives you a whole new experience of life and the subtle realms. And it is, more and more people are awakening right now, and more people are stepping into this. And with every single one of us who opens up to our gifts, the field gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it becomes easier for each and every one of us. And if you are interested in studying more about this, I have a workshop this weekend at Form Yoga. I lead retreats. I've got a couple coming up in the spring. Elena from the Activate Your Superpowers class, is that what you're talking about? I will just give you a moment to respond. I can talk about it though. With the workshop, with the weekend workshop, we start by going over energy, the energy field, how energy works, auras, and empathy, and how to become an empowered empath versus an overwhelmed empath. And we go into tuning into your inner wisdom, how to connect with your higher self, your soul voice, so to speak. And then we work with all of the clairsenses in depth that I just talked about. We also connect with our spirit guides and our angels. How do you determine between real inner knowing and external pressures, the inner critic, guessing, etc.? The real internal knowing is when your body, when you feel it land in your body, and you can feel either an expression of expansion or an expression of contraction. And so when it's anxiety or worry or the inner critic, it tends to be very heady. It tends to be like like we're mulling it over and over and over. And when it lands in us as inner knowing, it's very clean, it's very crisp. It comes in, boom, there it is. And we have a knowingness of whether it's true or not for us. And true feeling is an expansive opening, and a feeling of out of alignment is a constricted feeling. Does that make sense, Mandy? Susan, yes, more retreats, and we're doing a level 2 retreat in May, at the end of May, over Memorial Day weekend at Fire Creek Mountain again. So I'm super excited about that. Oh, and then let me also, for Elena's question, we also go over using divination tools, which covers, it's kind of like an overview of using divination tools, but we talk a little bit about pendulums, and we go into a little bit of card reading and how to tune into what the cards mean for you, using everything as well that you have learned over the course of the weekend. So that's a lot of fun as well. Does anybody else have a question? And Mandy, one thing I'm going to do is I have a really great Facebook Live on that topic, and I will actually post it in the comments because I think it's something that everybody could probably find really, really useful. Yes, Stanton, you will get an email with information on what to bring, and you'll get that Thursday or Friday. But basically, you're just going to bring a notebook and an open mind and a snack and some water, a water bottle, and you will be good. I love emails. I'm so glad you do. That's awesome. Thank you all so much. And I'm so grateful that each and every one of you was here with me, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you learned something. And I will see you all next week. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye.